rising to sing with vigor Psalm 33, which Reverend Gary Zechveld then read, recalling the sure hope that is found by trusting in the sovereign God and his steadfast love. The brothers then spent a few moments in prayer. The business of Synod began with refining the mandate and specifics of a synodical organizing committee, which was created on Thursday. This committee will be charged with securing a location for hosting Synod, providing logistical elements necessary for the synodical delegates, and preparing and maintaining a manual for the organizing of Synod. This committee will report to the convening consistory of Synod and to the National Corporation of the URCNA and the nation where a given Synod is held. The Assembly next turned its attention to the report of the URCNA statistician, receiving her report and expressing appreciation for her faithful and excellent service to the churches. Synod reminded the churches to be diligent in submitting their statistical data annually and in responding promptly to the statistician. The brothers also refined the categories of statistical information being collected from the churches. Returning next to some unfinished business from Thursday, Synod took up the remainder of an overture that requested numerous relatively minor changes to our church order, most aimed at improving the internal consistency of the language of the URCNA church order. Synod approved most of these, refining several points. These decisions, because they seek to change the church order, will need to be ratified by 2/3 of the consistories of the Federation. Further unfinished business followed as Synod resumed consideration of a pair of overtures addressing the appeals process in the URCNA. These overtures both sought to resolve a perceived conflict between a church order provision and the provision of one of its appendices, though they did so in contrary ways. After lengthy deliberation, the Assembly adopted a change to Appendix 7 of the church order and to the regulations for synodical procedure, which explicitly restricted appeals by individual church members. Under the newly adopted change, an individual church member would retain the right to appeal decisions of his own consistory, but he would not be permitted to appeal the decisions of a classis or synod. Should an individual believe that a decision of a broader assembly should be appealed, he would need to ask his consistory to pursue that appeal. Additional changes specified how an appeal may be brought by a classis, as well as the circumstances under which delegates to a broader assembly who previously handled an appeal may participate in judging an appeal. One of the last items of business for any synod involves the adoption of a budget. This the delegates handled quickly, thanks to the efficient work of their advisory committee. Prior to the delegates' final meal together, Reverend Paul Murphy briefly reminded them from 1 John 3:1 and other texts that the love God has for his people is the very same love he has for Jesus. Amazing grace. Reverend Murphy then led the brothers in prayer and song. After lunch, Reverend William Godfrey read Psalm 103, led in prayer, and called the assembly to sing praise to the Lord. The assembly then moved into elections. Reverend Doug Barnes was elected to serve as stated clerk, and Reverend Mark Vanderpool as alternate stated clerk. The assembly then recommended 2 men for service on the U.S. Board of Directors, from whom the board will select 1 member. To fill the role of home mission clerk, a position approved on Thursday, Synod appointed Mr. Paul Lawton. Looking forward to the next Synod, the assembly accepted the offer of Trinity Reformed Church of Lethbridge, Alberta, to serve as convening consistory for a Synod to be held on June 8 through 12, 2026.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the press release?